I've seen types of financial arrangements Ghana Akum since 1966. I saw what we call the SBAs, your friend of standby arrangement. I've seen the structural adjustment facilities, and then I've seen the extended credit facilities, and then I saw the highly indebted poor countries initiative one. Wadama, from 1966, DNA GG Yene BC Rollins and Peso about Ura John Muhammad so I think that was the power crisis time in Numina you call IMF Sankwaje Kakra to solve a problem.
In fact, with the exception of General Champon,
a penny
Bambia, any Nkoma Yini First, Ubia,
it's the in friend the standby arrangement.
Okay, into a good question. Good evening, Michia Ubia. IMF for no more different arrangements.
Okay.
Depends on time I will call.
Okay.
And then also at the corner at the call. Okay. That's our hospital. So be a when accident. Now Oko hospital first thing as a doctors no more stabilizer. To normally the ambulance neighbor the drip base severe the call ICU intensive care unit. Before I know cranibia the theater as a emergency surgery. You ne do by ICU recovery ward and side do main ward. Okay, it is a very similar analogy to the way Amanamani operate. We share IMF programs na no credit now kind of 1966 no. Most of the time no we always go there in an emergency. Just say enyoma atoto a crime be ama and yaman ayeding pa. And sometimes we go there because two things. Ebia and yama be ACC ever abonting to what about for become external factors. Ebia oil price cost anyway any idea and then you are exposed and therefore you are in a very balance of payments crisis. The second year my call so compounded with the first one. Internal management of economy no.
Okay.
Inti I say obi a I say be the fruits and I say for vitamins and na be ma wo ahoden and I say be born ho ban immunity. But when one share who ye amfasa andro no and I say when do fruit ni when di eduane ya ne ba etumi bo a more even difficult. Until we year, say from 66, yes, external factors but the main reason I call most times because of internal domestic mismanagement of the economy. Until we share last but one program in fact, Nancy IMF for the report by May 2023. What can report now? The buy now. First, I say, yes, Russia, Ukraine, but it was compounded by pre-existing vulnerabilities. Just say, Yakoboka, Ebiwa, the SA, Canadian, Yadi, and fine, yeah, right? Ebiwa, you see, so COVID near the yes, penny, Sikanwe near the Bibre near the we shouldn't have done all of it. Right until you becomes very clear say woko in an emergency situation a drone is meant to stabilize sa emergency until we share your arrangement back to now from 66 through 1986 the first 8 or so programs ni standby arrangement.
Yes,
standby no say na yenya crisis. It's very serious one. Okay, a community see early 80s. Okay, Nkrumah ye ni free home ye Nkrumah February was 66. By May 66 now we're already at the fund looking for a facility, right? Then gradually transition ye more structural adjustment mid 80s, and then from 90s ebano na ye be a friend extended fund facility and extended credit facility. And so arrangement again is meant to address balance of payments issues.
Okay.
Just say unyasika ehone wana bia bi beto ndro we bi beto bia we be kra petrol ni we ni are because we need dollars ni ade or system ma we be ebe krasa nyama no. So this is basically has been our history over the last 60 years. If we hear numbers now, almost every 3.5 years, you call. You program na 2-3 years. Nyama na say ye years will be again wako hospital. You see fendro we be unum kaka say me me want me. Others say na back to the old ways. Old ways, you know, so we are sa bebo yare and I'm now sa hospital you know idea. Inti the difference this time around to say and I'll come to the PCI we have not gone there in an emergency. So Sisiano, you have built the economic base in such a way say you have more leverage or control. In fact, we share all the main indicators near there. Now, statistical service have a kind inflation number almost 3.4 right percent. Right, and no say any more and cost. But compared to maybe an 54 about 20 anyway near there no. Ufa idea and cafe no better no usika 100. In inflation here 20 just say we better 120. Sisi an idea na 3 no 103. In the difference between you know 20 minus 3 and 17. Sika ewo bottom a wo betimi ade aye bibi fufuro. Because say ensure na ka me better 120 na sisi an me ton 103 me wo sika kakra o ha metimi die ato bibi fufuro anase bia me die ahwe me kola na me ba ne we ni ade. What does it is here no the economic base is very relatively stable.
Okay.
Right? And we are going there importantly also not in an emergency.
Okay.
Unlike SAR 17 ya kanya emergency into okwa I don't know ya the man say do go and wash it.
Yeah.
Others say privatize way you know and that is not what is happening this time around. This time around you know technical assistance.
Okay.
Just say brana be boy enye enyama ba kumienu miensa bi. Most of it already. The added benefit and say oh say year ebe send the correct signal. Ama market participants. Ama dachi bi say opese bia busia bi na opese okoje and I say nyewe bi na opese we obi abon say oh asimesi ka say obeye enyama A B C D waye yaba yehu say ano why no pepepe with this pepepe. That is all there is really to all of this. Inti o question now be say no kre ukomu history na time bia yako no has been in an emergency. Okay. Last one na yakoya no in fact you be in there that time your civil society academics na so no we should have even gone early.
But the finance minister was still telling us, he said, you see what we call the homegrown solutions to solve the matter. We are not going to IMF
today, tomorrow. Yes, we are a proud nation. But they do time the crown. They do because say it's e-levy or IMF.
Exactly.
Right. But again, you move here share data and information. It was quite clear. Say BBI kono. And Yamano and Koye. And we could have actually gone way earlier, and that would have saved a lot of some of the negative consequences that we dealt with, you know, down the line. Reason why I say this, you can go back and which me share data anywhere near there. But look, I say pandemic in this year, you know.
Yes.
Before the pandemic, Finance Minister Ebe Kai budget 2020 budget November 2019 our Parliament. Yeah. Catch so ni deficit no just say a cow sika o spending any nya revenue no we difference ni wo mu is going to be around 5 or 6% of GDP bibisa. And our pandemic no ba early 2020 until March. Finance Minister ba Parliament ebe kan bibi COVID bibi alleviation program ni we ni ade July Osamba the kind media budget. Yes. Or kind media budget, you know, some catcher say, oh, the difference between your revenue and your expenditure, no, it still would not be more than 5-6%. And you can fact check me on this. But we happen to have had the election in December, a call 2021 numbers and a buy, na near a bono car and near numbers was completely different, almost a double, right, of that number. And some of the market people started picking up those signals. I say, and Yomabi and Sheda and Koye. Until going into latter part of 21, you were near the end of people saying, the way I did Koye, we should go to the fund and then try and see between my arrangement to be anywhere near there. But I don't know, young course coming 2022. Okay, and then also so a move back and forth, between May and December of 2022. We pass check exchange rate and see the need bar under pressure. To the point say May December 22. I don't know I can say into me into a car a day. Right, we defaulted on our debt, and then in May of 2023 was when eventually we signed a program with the fund. New one, Nancy, and I castle will do a number of things, reforms, buying for Abba, continued with it, and then for the first time also tried to recalibrate and set the economic base. Into we share the macro numbers from 22 even to 24. Now we'll compare near Nancy 25 half year. It's been one of the most dramatic turnarounds in the country's recent economic history. The question then is, okay, how do we sustain this going forward? Yes. And I'm sure we'll come to that. And this is where the PCI is a key part of it, together with Nyaya on the side to complement it. In a program now, Finance Minister can 24-hour any new economy, right? To complement things that will help you to create injuma and sustain the growth, and then also enhance productivity. That is really all that we are trying to.
When Finance Minister says new economy, because I heard politicians, I mean, especially on the other side, were saying, say, Afina, Opesa Uche, say, what shall I say, what the new economy
manifesto near there. 24-hour core part of it. Economy, right? And then there are different components. Until 24-hour OSHA, one of the big components grow 24 and make 24. It's all about agriculture, agriculture value chains, and then some aspects of manufacturing near there. And as you can add one or two other bits to it. The one or two other bits what you do with the macro, sustaining the gains, and then within the macro, more. Let me explain that. We are saying, say, and this is part of the PCI, say, if we be primary surplus. Primary surplus, such as offer usika winya revenue. Now offer a car with the expenditure, but expenditure no won't fa your debt and count, right? And no count. To the difference between that, I'm from the Public Financial Management Act. 2025 April na amendment to the act. And your DM you be shame say, to me, primary balance of minimum 1.5% of GDP every year. And then at the same time, debt to GDP ratio. To offer a car now divided by your total worth GDP now, it should also be below 45% of debt to GDP. And only in your addition. And we are actually below 45%. Share 2025 numbers. And I say, analysis now, you can still meet that 45% threshold as legislated. By reducing our primary surplus now, I can 1.5 and bit me at the about 0.5. But you also need to do reforms, energy sector, more SOEs, cocoa board, ECG. Anyway, you can actually bring primary surplus 0.5 and still meet your debt sustainability threshold. But this is where it gets interesting. What it allows you then to do is, so if you 0.5, Oh, sorry, if 1.5, I know about 0.5. Yeah. So what it allows you to do is, this is additional spending now to me at the EU for priority expenditure. In the annual paying mass, you see our mining in our GDP about 118 billion.
Okay.
If you work out our 1% difference, 1.5 to 0.5, 1% of 118, Upaya mask kitubi. Oh, kitubi, right?
Okay.
About 1.8.
Okay.
Right? $1.8 billion.
Okay.
With the exchange rate and there, everyone say 11.
11.
Yeah. Until the 1.8 times 11, yeah, multiply by. That's over almost 12, right? 13 billion Ghana cedis you are getting every year, which you can use to do acquiring hospital, all the other priority infrastructure near
okay.
Right? Into a new economy anyway, and I say 24-hour nyamana especially a Greek anyway near the that is there, maintaining that, doing a lot around that, but also bringing in additional financing from reforms Okay. Now for the would the energy sector and yamano account here gas more gas that will allow us to bring down the cost of power, electricity. We are say
yes.
In fact, we compare Ghana to neighbors, Cote d'Ivoire, anywhere near there's no way you can be competitive on that, right? Until we are doing a lot of work also around that side to bring the cost of power down. And then you can also use gas now be wait me their fertilizer plant. Ama when you fertilizer the ama ekrafo e dia do omanyama na ama dianini ade aba. Until that is also another right part of it. Until enye bibia hu bibia sa ministers uti ni here press briefing so in the latter part of the year the details will be put out and the good thing is we are costing it.
Okay.
The two important things that how are you going to do it? Where will you get the money from? And what would the results look like? If you have not addressed these two things, often Libiano, we share mine, we just count things. Oh, and I'm here, but the outcome and then the impact of that often sometimes we don't pay attention to. But we are actually thinking very deeply around both outcomes and then around impact as well, right? Into these are all part of a NYMA which would complement PCI. We will come to the PCI, a more specific NYMA to really ensure two things. The stability na yenya sisiano ebwa. It is good, but it is not the end of everything. What is important is that it has to translate into jobs, growth, productivity. And no na ubi baby say okay, my way. Nti a face. This ano untumi nye njuma, untumi nye stability, untumi nye growth. Sorry, untumi nye njuma, untumi nye economy, right? Without having the stability in the first place. This ano the next phase is moving to that jobs phase and then also ensuring it actually drives productivity.
All right, Doctor. One of the things I am na DBA na yehune say IMF eba usika semupe na akoye say ye tenetene de enso ye de ensa to eneme bi so oboso. Yamba be we omoka che say one of the things I say yehwe ho edi ho komo ye pa has to do with the energy sector, or probably state enterprises. I don't know whether that has been a downfall since the 1966, because there are issues where I have also read where do maybe as I see a tone state enterprises,
privatization, diversification implementation committee.
We are back again with the same process, also telling us as we do say as I say yes share necessary share so matters waka so say the idea revenue collection side of ECG work way as I say yes share near dema ankrankra ama akofa nsem bebre na ba wada ma chichire mu ECG ye the ensabeka IMF and Shisha Yomudima ECG ye the ensabeka at a BI so can we at this other ones big can one say a shiny can one say me at the same one. Okay,
yes, thank you for the question. We share again your history. Now we share all the 17 programs here. A large part of what and I'm going to say internal issues here, the economy state-owned enterprises, right? We share enterprises near Nkrumah near there over 20 or so near there. As we speak today, barely a few of them are functional.
Yes.
Right. Some of it pure mismanagement, and that we don't have to run away from that. And then if you go back again, even in the most recent time, in the 90s and then in the early 2010, we've attempted different forms of reforms. The thing is that kakra na IMF one bana omufiu anaso bibani efiu na say co-election near then sa pressure ne ba. What does it? Now say ye and if you break pedal and so kakra. You get it in. And that is quite a bit of a big issue. The point also and say we share state-owned enterprises ni na e ka omobo, right, which the state as a Ministry of Finance has to come and cover. It's in excess of 2% of GDP. It's under my 118. No, they calculated 2% of 118. Right, that is over $2 billion every year. This is money you are putting into some of these SOEs to but some of them you put in and you're not getting the commensurate return back. You will crunch your dividend. What I say?
Okay.
Some of them, the people there they are working, but you look at the productivity levels, from kakra, right? And Bibiano economics if be opportunity cost.
Okay.
Obisibeka say sa 2 billion na which I say sa scan so say bi ye won kwala bi omugu bi a me constituency
me wo bon katamanso.
Okay, ana ukrom ankasa
Ekwapem South.
Okay, nti bi a krubi wo Ekwapem South to e kire we bi a kwala no beko no omu ni desk omoteso.
Okay.
Me boa.
Yeah.
Bi a teacher no kra be bi obeda kra no nsi tokra roof no leaky. In this 2 billion now them are state-owned enterprises propping them up. You're not getting much returns and all of that from it. That money could equally have been used to provide schools, right, and hospitals anywhere near there. And that is a trade-off. So the question is, okay, what do you do to engineer and maybe I say would the jabby beto so is omana say no mutumi aye enyoma ye what I say because almost shey ni ye no mo ye ni ye a no mutumi tua dividend ma abaya. In fact, management no commitment to mo ye because mama performance KPI umitia I will pay you more. In the private sector you meet the target and all of that, right? In the energy sector, one of the big issues has always been ECG. To the point they say we show more data and more system losses anywhere near there. There are fundamental issues there that need to be addressed. Into abino bar power no. In fact, you can even go back a few more in your PDS near there or by whole reforms near there. What we are trying to do here is actually not that different from that. Until you go back to the private sector participation, which is different from privatization. Yeah, in ton ECG.
Okay.
Now so mekophobia babe boame ama ya a distribution no maybe are losses near there one near there ni nyina no na mama no target KPIs oyeni no meet those targets are you pay them but the asset itself belongs to or the state, right? It is very important that I clarify say it is not privatization, a private sector participation. Cabinet also moved and has actually made a decision on this. Until Cabinet actually approved the policy for the private sector participation way back. And yeah, that's him. And yeah, that's him. In fact, TUC for there have been various rounds of consultations with them around this PSP model. I consider, yes, if you are still on more war, in some kakrani where they need to be resolved because of potentially be more job losses in any idea. A natural reaction, any problem. We have to sit down and iron out. But as far as the PSP approach through this multiple concessionaire model, to close the collection gap. You see, I know out of 1 CD electricity be ECG better. Ocean numbers now, only about 70-75, right? Pesos, right? So you have almost like a 20. Some of the numbers about 27% gap, right? That needs to be closed. Okay. Specifically, we share collections now. The collections is actually around 86 or so percent. You see, across in the last few years. But when you benchmark it against other utilities globally near there, they should be around 95-96%. Just say, me talk electricity if you owe 1 CDR, na many ECG, me recover 95 pesos if you mo.
Okay.
See, I normally am around 85-86.
I didn't know doing better.
Of course, it's better than what it was before. Also because the tariffs were also adjusted, right? And then the exchange rate, the tariff also went up, so the collections have gone up. Then exchange rate adjustment in there. Until when you actually strip some anyway from now, we have pure analysis and look at just what the we can say effort
to collect
anywhere near there, it is still not anywhere near the levels that you need, right?
Okay.
So fundamentally, I share analysis anywhere near there, whole consultant, whole report anyway. And what is very clear is that you need to have this multiple concessionaire, right, model, and cabinet approved that private sector participation. It has been around, and I understand my friends from Labour and some of the concerns. They can sit down. Government is prepared, ready and willing. So many better say to iron out some of those differences near there. But it is quite clear, say we cannot keep doing things the same way and expecting kind of a different result.
But Oradok, are we assuring them, say, job losses will not come, and now say ABC?
Oh, say Uti President President Shia organized labor.
Yes.
A few 2 months ago. Yes. He assured them, say they will do any and everything to try and minimize, because once you are bringing a PSP, right, model, private concessionaire anywhere near there, it be a little bit more to even go and do some of the metering work anywhere near there, but they don't necessarily have to be on ECG's payroll. Okay. Until the incentive structure actually changes.
Okay.
What I say.
Okay.
So I think we have to be very clear on that. As for Njuma anywhere near there, you may have some small attritions here and there, and only there as a result of it. But equally, when the PSP player comes in, they may also need more people to actually work to improve the billing. But fundamentally, they do that also to improve ECG, overall solvency, and therefore again, Ocean America reduce our fiscal risk now. So pressure na that budget into me emphasis be any more acquire any more a school, because Sikano Echo to prop up your state-owned enterprises.
Okay. All right. Right, Doctor. One of the things I know you do say no kwakra say yesi IMF yati ase. Mo say mo di BBA friend no policy coordination and abem yati ase. Now, the ordinary Ghanaian wants to understand say policy measures here the beba be nyina no. Eba be increasing taxes. Ana say eba be widen tax net no. Na yetumi ayɛ those many nyinaa anaso sɛ deɛ mpa na the ordinary Ghanaian ebetumi ehu sɛ ampa yefi IMF no ɛmfa pressure mbrɛme na mmom no ɛde adepa na ɛbrɛme na ama policies amode toto ho nyinaa no etumi ahwɛ ama the ordinary Ghanaian ɛso he ɛho no hwan ha no.
Yeah, so good is we share a CCIE free IMF, we have been put to the test. So what I mean by that is we share near cost to CCIE, Iran, US,
yes,
any near cost to Middle East,
yes.
And my oil price echoes yeah, budget with an oil price of $76 a barrel.
Yes.
Zia is in excess of what $100
yes.
has been for the last few weeks,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay. Sankaye, who determine petrol price at the pump? Normally, it determines our price now. A farm gono and casa price, and our exchange rate. And number 3, abino a tour de tuso, taxes and levies, right?
Yes.
These are the 3 things. Ufa Niamami and Sana, the one that has a big impact often on the price, exchange rate.
Okay.
Right? Until to the extent, say, in the last 1.5 years, exchange rate has been very relatively stable, right? And that has been controlled. You can see, say, the price adjustments that people are seeing at the pump. And in Iberia, I to petrol go to fill my tank, right? Super 95, it's about 15 cedis per liter.
Yeah.
If you had not controlled the exchange rate, and things were as they were even in 24, and you apply the normal every year 10-15% depreciation to it, and you did that same math, with the oil price moving from 76 to 100 and the taxes where they are now, you would have been paying in excess of 20 for a liter of petrol, right? So what I'm saying is that some of the benefits now, even under the current program, 17 program, people can feel and see it at the pump. People can also feel and see it generally in the living conditions. Inflation. Niameka senka better idea one issue 120 now this year no 103 anyway near there no. That is a direct benefit they can see and feel in their pocket. I am not saying say you are solving Ghana for problem there are big problems that we need to solve, including Ijuma. Because nipa no Ijuma ain't ni honey we near there, right? But even that, when you look at some of the other data, Bank of Ghana for data, private sector credit activity, real sector indicators, things are beginning to pick up. Some of the numbers are even at 3-4 year highs that we have not seen, right, before. But a lot more has to be done. And the more that has to be done to support benefits and even go further down, where this PCI and the other things are coming. Opa, for the emphasis for your listeners,
yes.
PCI
okay.
No, insia.
Okay.
Okay. Number 1, I mean, kind a brofonona metrics and also number 1, the 36-month non-financing PCI is aimed at 1, sustaining growth-friendly fiscal adjustment. Number 2, safeguarding debt sustainability. Number 3, strengthening fiscal transparency and governance, particularly for state-owned enterprises. Number 4, enhancing the monetary and exchange rate policy framework. Number 5, reinforcing financial sector stability. And number 6, supporting economic diversification and inclusive growth. Some of which I've talked about. Number first one, this growth-friendly fiscal adjustment. Okay, bro, focus here. Ni cheche mani ni ameka so ubetimi move primary surplus na ameka from 1.5 to 0.5. Meet your debt target, but you still have additional money to spend on your priority sectors, like agriculture, right? Like in your energy sector, like, in transport, logistics, you can do all of those things. This is what it means. It means you don't have to keep that target 1.5 bit media above but at the same time, you reform your SOEs, because one year SOE reforms now, there is no way your debt numbers will come down the way you want. They will still be creating debt and what they call contingent liabilities on the budget until you have to address that. one other thing I want to 6-1 or say economic diversification and inclusive growth, right? Ya can be structural transformation. Ya can kakrana improve ya na enyoma, right? This time around, we see we want to sustain this, especially within the agriculture sector. So the big emphasis is on commercial agriculture, any agribusiness, right? Inti enya adia ye dua banchene body ketu bi ni we ni adia eboa, but you need more people to go into large scale commercial agriculture. But would be our banchana body area a coin a banchene body any be fee a fumu ediaba ebia abublushi, right? You have to address logistics, code value chain anywhere near there, right? And that is really where you get transformation near there from. But also importantly, you know, when you see or you measure adiwe or growth numbers, you know, it has to be inclusive. As you know, say unya say obia beba Accra as our when you jumaye, and as obia betina Kumasi, right? Big cities. We need to be able to spread the development around a little bit more. Accra pressure you know, share dying 1 bedroom, maybe 2 bedroom, a car mobile there, no 2 ways, you know. But if you spread the development around a little bit more, it reduces some of the pressures, but also ensures the dignity of the individual, the dignity of the Ghanaian, right, is you maintain it. Into BBFN inclusive growth. It is reducing poverty and it is reducing inequality. Data now is here. We'll go back 20 years. Yes, the economy has been growing. Maybe we are 5%, 6%. Inflation there, down. But we share some of the poverty data and inequality data. It is worrying. Until we are saying so, we are no longer focusing just on nice big macro numbers and stability, but fundamentally it has to move down to the micro level. Say to improve people's well-being beyond inflation. Umenya enyoma ayese agriculture no person or anywhere near there, they can do it on a large scale that brings down costs, and then you can see economies of scale near there, you know, and then you become competitive overall.
Now development communication people will say one of the economic perspectives that they believe in has to do with modernization, and then of course they believe that GDP and face with inflation and down, it tells you economy I fine. Now don't I so and answer economics so the back say say inflation about down 3.2 we are fine. You see the about down we are fine. Sanemani na indicators say economy age now so ye.
Yes.
Next so no the ordinary Ghanaian keeps worrying and telling you say Mr. Kujomwa enema bono still lano eyedene. But abaino any ministry no catch me say enema stabilize. Da benda na the ordinary Ghanaian no ebeko sa adwom ho na wate sign kan say ampa ade no more cancer if you saw by inflation or form and away will say na see the next stabilizer from 1 year near and all that sanyama ni nyina no menya certain kan no ewase o.
Okay. Interesting question, Larissa. Very good question. And there are a couple of responses. One of the responses means nipa no cancer asem no. Presumably no, the expectation is that near statistical service I can say inflation anyway near the just on Jindi, more or less.
Okay.
Based on the framing now thereby, right? Okay. Inflation a bit different from any inflation.
Okay.
Sebi ebia wo no be kakra. Ebia wo pe cheese. Meso sebi idea milk na me no.
Okay.
I say and I say ebia wo pese wo di a chekeni tilapia.
Okay.
And fried rice, but restaurant now ba kudi no enye ho na me akoto
ebe obeto check
obi beto check obi beko ni we ni ade nti obi no lived expectation or experience no is slightly different.
Okay.
Until when I work out maybe a many ankasa personal inflation basket no maybe will be a little higher than what the average is. Okay. Because statistical service no ko edwumu awo man mu nyina, right? All the key market, and then they will pick all the key ingredients everyday house use, including things like even more rent, including electricity, anywhere there. They pick all of that information, and then they assign maybe a friend weight, right, to it. And normal calculation, you answer okay, based on market in the whole country near the on average. Prices are rising at last one almost say 3.4%, right? Compared to ABI say 20% the year before. And no, price no confirm. So I know price no confirm. It just means the rise is not as high as what it was before, right? Inflation is not disinflation, right? It's not deflation. Right, maka technical well but me actually deflation no say price on actually conform you think 100 I buy and say 90 and 80 and I say bibisa. Disinflation no say cost but cost as high or as big as you want or what it was before. And only first point. The second point no say what I was saying, no consumption is slightly different, right? And from the year free 54 ni 20 near the typically we share data now. They always tell you that prices are sticky downwards. What I say? Until na amount from bezel adjustment to bring the thing down, even though in real terms, it's actually even deflation. Some of the things are coming down. Which is statistical service for data memory release here. Just endorse and annually. Some of the items in the basket, in fact, prices above from. Okay. What I say, above from you can pick one or two individual items. You can see say above from a body. That's the one I remember easily. And you can fact check this green plantain. I think it's like 33% reduction. Okay. Right. But it be so a cost ro kakra. Until we years are adjustment on average, and I know na beka so this is what we are seeing. But I don't know in chess personal and cost ro. And I say on the other will be the crown be slightly lower than even 3.4 new near the. What I think the import of your question also comes back to the way I hear pricing generally. Our pricing. What I say, and even things like standards measures. To make koto idea bako be different. We abeko be for so different, but you're paying a different price, right? A for it. You know, to make koto idea be yebema receipt to have VAT also. Beko be no VAT in so yema receipt. Those are big structural issues that we are trying to address, right? And it is part of the whole transformation story anyway near there. And I appreciate Omomokaso be a okwa, Nemomo Stella, Nemomo Yed anyway, but we also have to understand a bit of the nuance. The third I ask America to respond that ultimately people need to also have more jobs, Ijuma, and therefore have more spending power. Right? Because if you have more jobs, you have more spending power, you can also buy more things and move from subsistence to middle class, upper middle income, and then upper classes. You see, I know share a society when a lot of people are still stuck at the bottom. Yes. Right? And for them, especially those at the bottom, so 1 CD and now they have 100 CD, or spend it or they talk or feeling more than only me and Sebio because Sebia or Sorokaka. What I say. So they feel the pinch a little more than Ubioye middle income. So part of the more medium to long term solution, then a be ya bama omoso menya nyuma ne ade aye agric ne ne amekekan ne ade so that they can also have bigger or better spending power.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody says plantain is still very expensive here in the in the central region, so I don't know about any 33% beer like that. And then he says, ask about the groceries and produce, not check. Okay, we shouldn't be comparing the check level to groceries that they pay, they go in for and all that. On also media.
I see in toast in body yes.
The other ones that they will look for and all that. Okay.
Yeah.
Look, one of the things is what Ababeto Joy do komo ye past to do is economy, we are here and say now one of the things that back the economy has to do with the gold. Now we've heard a lot of politics around this gold business. Dr. Bamia Kono Ujaye gold, you buy a bet ton be a ton be 19 tons, and a day no Ubi can moye Uganda and Nibica moye anymore now say one among economy no a stabilize and one among ye Nansono Okono Uja Eya Mondibi to Honoma Bake Sikasem and all that. This gold related to our economy, the currency, stabilization, and all that. It is saying Wadama.
Well, gold has come to help a lot.
Okay.
Our economy, especially on the external sector. Again, with me actually data no. Bank of Ghana it's online. Everybody can check. You look at the 3 or 4 things I exported, right? And you look at the composition, typically gold, oil, any cocoa, and then you have non-traditional exports or what they call other exports. Okay. If you look at the data and you go back over the last maybe 4 or 5 years, in fact, you can even go back by 30 years. 30 years ago, the biggest export earner would have been cocoa.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And then that changed a little bit coming into 2010-11 when we started oil production. So suddenly oil no so farm gonna so edi ibi ebre, right? And then you started also getting more from the gold side. Into which relative proportions now gold is giving us about 65-70% of our export by value. Right? All the other ones, so far oil, any cocoa, any non-traditional, I know now the remaining 30% now akano, right? This is compared to what would have been gold on average, maybe about 30 or let's say 40% a few years ago. So clearly, the gold has helped us on the export side, and it has also helped us in bringing in dollars that you need from outside, right? Dollars from export volume equal, but gold price so equal. So you are enjoying from both sides, right? The volume and then the price as well. In the last 2-3 years, Donald Trump buy any say a lot of investors run to gold as a safe haven asset. So the price has been at an all-time high historically. When you check the analysis, new any idea, right? Into what you're getting is the additional dollar, right, inflows. The difference or what has been added, which is a bit new, the domestic gold purchase program, which now moved into Ghana Accelerated National Reserves Policy, and then gold board and all the things right around it, right? So going back 22, we started with DGPP, Domestic Gold Purchase Program, to gold, and then we're buying some from the small scale and then the large scale. In fact, some was even being used for gold for oil, butter arrangement, anyway near there, okay. And then you brought the gold to support reserves, right? We started accumulating gold reserves anywhere near there. It has a certain value.
Okay.
When you work out, which are central banks we are seeing normally the gold proportion of total reserves, and the actual physical gold is around 30%, no more than that.
Okay.
There are some countries that are close to 60, 70, which is a bit of an anomaly from gold now more accumulative from Nixon time, right? And even after World War II, nowhere near there. But in contemporary times, most central banks would have about 30% of total reserves in the form of gold.
Okay.
Yeah, at the point coming into 25, it was close to about 60%, certainly over 50% of that. Okay. And you can do them. These numbers are there in the public domain. You can check from the central bank's website, right? So you see, sir, when the IMF came into town during the FIT review, they issued a report. Anybody who cares, again, can check this. They made some recommendations of the back of this 50% or more, FABB concentration risk.
Okay.
As in, you don't want to be tied down to one particular asset that has a big domination in the total portfolio.
Okay.
Right? Into number 2, in relation to our concentration risk, around that same time, later 2025, the forecast of gold by the major international trading houses and investment banks, Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, was actually that in the latter part of 25, gold price was going to go down. Okay. Right? So from just a dynamic Rebecca portfolio management near the one, the price is going to likely go down. Number 2, where you are exposed over 50%, what do? You offload some, lock in the relatively higher price, and convert it into dollars. Okay. So all that you have done is you have taken one asset from where you gold, and then Masisa gold in your dollars, at the Abakami reserves, and Sisa.
Okay.
The reserve value is still what it is. I have just moved it from gold bars into dollar cash.
And I'm the
And I'm the into Bibia Nyeraye, Ubien Bibia, what I say. Right?
19 tons near
from 38 to 19 you only sold it to convert it from gold into USD, and that is added to your total reserves portfolio.
Okay.
Right. Institutional Bank of Ghana financial statements and their policy solvency calculation. There's a line there, net gain from gold sales nowhere near there, right? And in all the other, they explain it very clearly how this helped to support, right, the reserve accumulation, but also to reduce our concentration risk. Yamaka. Matisa Amanphobia can say, oh, Anna, the price was going to be high. It is not true. The price only started going up high in latter part of early 2026 year. Trump go attack Iran.
Yeah.
That is when you started seeing the price beginning to pick back up right again. Really, that is it. The beautiful thing, Minia, and it's we are still accumulating or adding on to the gold, right? Me can say dynamic reserve or portfolio management. It doesn't mean say a ton and fabi and count. You will still add, but at any point you want to meet those 30% ratios new any dynamic. Until we share Bank of Ghana statistics no more release and there was the quarterly summary of financial economic statistics. You can look at the data. I can pull it for you here. The net addition to the gold reserves is gone up, right? So it's gone up by at least 3 or 4 tons. I will check the data here. Yeah, we have not lost anything. So when people make it as though, oh, you lose BB, new any day because the price was going, it is not the case. In any case, we bought our gold, at a relatively lower price, right? And then you sold it at a price of whatever the forecast was in the latter part of 2025. Right, so you lock in again. That gain is what you are seeing clearly. Our Bank of Ghana financial statements nowhere near there also. That is the important thing. So you have just converted it from one form onto another form. Okay. Right, and then going forward, you are even adding a little bit more to it as part of the whole dynamic. In Tiana, I say, we should data now. Bank of Ghana for publish here. And then I send run on publish here. It's on their website. You see under the reserves column where they calculate net reserves, and then you see total value of gold holdings in tons, and then the value in dollars, you will see is there. It's actually gone up as well.
Wow. Inti yenya abutoye se ye gold ni ye nkonton ye ema ya boka anansi ya
boka. Let is very clear. Ubia emboka bibia. You only moved it from one form to the other. Also because you don't want to be over concentrated in one space.
Need to be in that 30% regime.
In that 30% range anywhere near there. And so yes, gold helps. But it is only as useful as what you have in terms of the ability to convert it into one liquid form or another form.
It looks as if they keep saying more credit, more buy, and at least more better say policy be a binder than the to see gold reserve. I mean, be good, you know. You seem not to be giving them credit on that.
I'm not sure about that. You know, what credit have you? We've had. I've just sat here. I've mentioned domestic gold purchase program. I've mentioned gold for oil, and that contributed. We've come and then even done and built on that. Right, so we scrapped the gold for oil leg, maintained the gold for reserves bit, but even improved on it through this gold board channel. I didn't even explain that because we show gold board channel now, right? You are getting gold from the artisanal sector, but now you get more from that than even the large scale mining sector, right? Before. Most of Sasikana, Ebasa, small scale, ni ASM, ni when that money was all leaking out in various channels. Others here. And it was not coming, some of them was not coming into your formal banking setup and systems and all of that. You have an avenue now with the gold board to actually formalize that trade and even support the miners to again to do things the right and proper way. Traceability systems they are putting in place, all these sort of things to ensure a good now if we are saying we can trace the source of that gold and even get a little bit of a premium on top of that.
So Doc, the gold for oil, my understanding, was it a good one? Was it a good policy? Na or minor around that time using the
at the time when they did the gold for oil bit, which was basically barter arrangement the policy was couched in a way that it was meant to support the economy with getting oil products anywhere near there, I have not done any empirical work around that, but I remember there has been a bit of work done by the central bank on especially the gold for oil. And there's a reason that they decided to actually scrap that leg because there were issues around some of the contractual structures and who was doing what and some risks that were being brought to bear on the central bank's books. So they decided to close that channel and then maintain the reserves leg, but even better that with the gold board and then gun wrap, which is allowing you to actually add more and then formalize aspects of that trade.
Two issues na yejawo kwan na wabre na otumi akọ, but there's this one 3 hours ago Gideon Boakon etro ni social media handle or say, hear me clearly, starting next month commercial banks may begin rejecting certain foreign exchange deposits. If you have dollars you intend to deposit, it may be wise to do so now. Otherwise you could risk losing that opportunity later. This is not intended to cause panic, but reflects the concerns about. I'll read it, but basically, this is what he's put there. Is there an answer to this one?
Frankly, I don't know. I've not read it until I mean, I have to understand on what basis he's making those claims. Is this in response to? Some policy or something that has come out. I don't know until I think I would have to investigate or find out some more. But the basis or the rationale Gideon the actual sir.
Okay. The other one has to do with another institution also omubwa a check and maybe we has to make a ISODEC Integrated Social Development Center. Omode in maybe about stronger action against illicit financial flows.
Yes.
So they're looking at it say between 2013 downside to 2023. Ghana has lost almost about $32.6 billion through illicit financial flows. They're looking at where misinvoicing, corporate tax avoidance, weakness in within the extractive sector. And I'm happy about the extractive sector where they are hitting more. Some of these things that they say, because if 32.6 billion, we went to IMF with some 3 billion. Yes. And internally, you lose such sika we are.
Yes.
What are some of the measures a bit to be there to look at these things?
Oh, thank you. It's a good question, and these are long-standing issues. I mean, I have worked in the extractives, both mining and oil and gas, over the last 15 years, and then also in public finance and tax. Until I understand issues now, I said therefore very, very, very well, and I also know some of the channels through which some of these trade misinvoicing, even AFABB transfer pricing issues are happening. There's a lot that is being done now to try and close some of those gaps.
Okay.
Until you offer to support a publican, the AI system that is being implemented right at the port to close some of those loopholes. You look at some of the reports, including report that time I did with my friends from Imani, right, to look at Imani, issues happening at the port, and you would see so bit to meet the chicken bar, no say a mackerel, right? Mackerel, no, you pay a lower duty on it than the chicken. Bit to meet the angwania dieba na ya teso and some bibre, right? The public is helping to close some of those gaps. And if you look at the data that is coming through before implementation and after implementation, the increase in the revenue and all of that, it shows you clearly say some of those gaps are being closed. Right? But we share data, it is very clear that there are major loopholes that we need to close. Mining, any oil and gas, for sure there are issues. Companies, some of these transfer pricing, and some of them are very technical. Some of them maybe ends up in arbitration, right? Dispute management, there. But a lot of work, a lot of technical assistance and reform is being done both at the level of GRA. Because by law, no GRA, a 20 and there are different units there that are doing a lot of very, very good work, and you're seeing an uptick or improvement in the revenue from that side. But you cannot close all of those gaps. And we have to be frank. I sometimes say, even if you close out 33 billion, 10% pay of that AI, that's about 3 billion. The same money we want to take from the IMF. And do the double, 6 billion. You know what 6 billion can do? 6 billion, a railway line, Bakwefi, Ayimensa, all the way to Accra Central. I say to me, ADB cry from Pokuase, Efasek, Haya, Echo, right, Accra Central. So that is the way to go. As for the needs in India, we have to build more hospitals, SAA, but Edisika, Quancha we are doing everything to improve the revenue, but we are also very conscious every CD, every dollar that we spend has to deliver value for Ghanaians. So gone are the days people we see Sikani when near there. This is no value for money office. Next year, Fiscal Council checking on the finances. There's a number of other reforms all to close some of these loopholes until you are addressing revenue, but you're also addressing expenditure. at the end of the day, no, bit me nyasika more, at the aya nyoma more, amagana for any aje.
Like a value for money office act na abanene honkomo, because then the argument was that the procurement mrawo and a masanko for value for a money office in a swaba. Obi bisa say them is it not the same?
No, it's not. There are differences. Okay, right. And the procurement for no, omoye VFM and Samano Kakra, but they don't do the whole suite, right?
Okay.
We share what kind procurement act now, what kind details new in here. This type of value for money now, as a way, even before at the end a procurement for PPE, right? You don't have that level of detail or granularity, right? If we be so commitment authorization, we brought that last year, Minister by before we call ministry, and before we call PPE, you would have had a commitment authorization. You see, before we call PPE, you need both commitment authorization and value for money certificate, right? To check on the bills, to check on the quantities, to do a deep analysis and say, so a coin will be a 1 kilometer, as a cost me say, and as a como. And therefore we are happy that it actually meets those value for money benchmarks. But beyond that, the amount of contract in Syria, a bit near ex post analysis near there, and use all of that to inform policy and even some of the work that a PPE for ANT, it serves a very different purpose from what PPA does. Luckily, what kind of new value for money act, there are specific provisions to address some of these coordination issues.
Okay.
And here will be my friend, like a joint council, which has it's a coordinating council more or less. So you have PPA, you have internal audit. You have, I think, Ministry of Finance, right? And they are meant to sit to iron out some of these, call it institutional overtures, right? Because for sure, when you start implementing, there will be one or two right issues. Also, the reason why you have to about a minister or a president signing a man, or can say, 5-6 months to put things in place and address some of these potential institutional, challenges. Once all those things are addressed going forward, there shouldn't be any issues. So, far from that. But it is all to ensure that you have public expenditure efficiency. There are too many leakages, too many wastages in the system, and we have to block it.
So you will not agree with Omokase. We tend to find too many excuses by establishing agencies to solve one problem that one sector or one institution say empower one community.
In this particular one, in this particular instance here, it's a slightly different thing.
Okay.
Right. The general point is well established that there are times that we set up institutions that tend to duplicate other things. Exactly. But let's be specific on this issue, which has to do with value for money assessment, right? And how you do it, and at what point in the contracting or procurement process that comes in, right? And we're saying, so before our commencement authorization, you need that commencement plus the VFM certificate before you go to PPA. And you cannot even award any contract if you don't have the VFM certificate. It's very clear, on that. And then also we anticipate to say when you start, there will be one or two issues that you need to resolve among other institutions. So you have a mechanism in the law to do that through this joint council that will be set up. And even a third one, which is interesting, is that say value for money office, analysis we have rejected it and you're not even happy with it. There's an avenue for challenge. So there's a judicial body made up of former, Supreme Court or Superior Court judges and others who can sit and adjudicate and make sure, basically check the decisions of the VFM office that they are not just being capricious or arbitrary, right? So a lot of checks and balances have been built within the system. But what we should not lose sight of is the fact that there's a lot of waste, there's a lot of inefficiency, there's a lot of, money that is going down the drain that can be used to do other things. Okay. We need to build more schools, we need to build more hospitals, but they also have to meet, value for money benchmarks. Okay.
You know, maybe we're not why Ghanaians are IG assurance, but there are some few messages for you. A person with answer. Now this one says that, good evening, host and guest. Thumbs up for CD appreciation. I had more consumer surplus after purchasing my items during your era of CD appreciation of not less than 70,000 Ghana cedis. 2. Please, without the ability of purchase, inflation becomes stagnant. 3. Strengthening the agricultural sector and transforming our raw materials will earn us much. 4. Lastly, I'm afraid to tell you not to brag upon deflation or stagnant inflation unless you pay road contractors, cocoa farmers, and undertake capital expenditure projects that will show either inflation is stagnant or low. This is what is coming from a original Tofia Atunsu.
Oh yes, he has a valid point on the fact that, okay, he appreciates he's seen the improvement. He can see a surplus. Yes. 70,000 yes.
Yes.
He also then mentioned, yes, a lot more has to be done. And like I have said, we are not overly jubilating, so we are way. Stabilization helps only to the extent that you leverage on that to transform the economy, to create those jobs near agriculture and and that is really the next phase. That is where a lot of the work and the effort is going, towards. So I align with what he is saying, and it is not different from what we are trying to chart in terms of the path that you need to stabilize. You've got that. What is the next thing? The next thing is growth and productivity.
Okay.
And jobs.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Host. Dr. Champo spoke against consenting economy when the MPP was in power. I thought he was fair, but he's defending NDC government from all angles. There is no trust in so professional, critical. I don't get the last one, but he's doing it from Sunyana. I'll say, if 6 billion can do what Dr. Champo is talking about, why did they spend 10 billion to cushion the city? On also the or they buy, and I know you're going to answer that, but this one says, hello, good evening, Mr. Kojo Prako. I'm watching you from Senegal, and my name is John Ato Esan. Mr. Kojo Prako, I think that this man called Dr. Echampo is doing well in our economy. He should keep it up. On also the or they buy, and this one says, good evening, Mr. Kojo Prako and Dr. Echampo for this conversation on life improving program. At least youth can plan towards any progress in mind, unlike what many of the populace were seeing from 2022 and or the buy. Or say, please ask why US dollars 12 billion put to stabilize the currency in 1 year. They could have used half of this to stabilize the remainder put in railway development to create jobs. This is what he's saying. This one says, I will be pleased if doctor can give me the market where plantain price has reduced by 30%. I find myself at a farming area and plant price is still expensive. That is what he's also saying from here. And this one says, Teacher Kojo Tepa, if the NDC government does well to cut corruption significantly, we will not need to an exploitative and destructive IMF to preach to us all that we already know. The cocoa sector is bleeding due to the actions of this same IMF. Greetings to Honorable Eric Nanajaman Prempe MP for Havana North, and then Asante Media Onosonedia or de Ebaye and no. And then there are some couple of text messages in here that I will want to see read if time permits. Or say the immediate love for gold board over cocoa board by government is not. This one is from KJC or Boise and Ode Ebaye. This one says, please, do you know that Ghana, we have one Ghana and Okay, I can understand where you're coming from. I say hello. About Ghana feel better government I should bring price control. Okay, so he is calling for price control because we're talking about price also baby price and all that. So he's thinking we should be having price control. Once upon a time we had the late Dr. Kwesiboche coming in to give us all the price list. I mean, would we ever get that? I mean, would we come back to that? I think
we have gone past.
We've gone past that.
What you need is standards, measures, and then some form of enforcement. Price listing personally, I think we have gone past that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so quick one. Did we use any 12 billion or 10 billion to stabilize the cedi?
No. So this analogy people make is interesting, but it's actually not also then factually correct, because they make it sound as though 12 billion high. We just took that and then it came at a certain cost. What you look at the gold board, which I explained, gold board buys gold in cedis. They will go and sell the gold in dollars, bring those dollars in, and then they use some of the dollars to support the central bank. So the central bank will use the dollars then to push that to the commercial banks and use that for what is called FX intermediation, which is allowed, right, under the law. All central banks do that. So what you want is, your currency system was be floating peg until your exchange rate would move plus or minus within a certain range. And anytime you see distortions, imbalances in the market, then you have to sort of act, right? Otherwise things get out of control, right? So what gold board is being able to do is actually bringing in excess of that 12 billion, 12 billion last year, right? And that comes in directly to support your reserves, and then the rest of it that you have, you push that to the commercial banks to support your currency, because you want a stable currency. In that it's a macroeconomic stabilization objective. What many people are also not asking is what would have been the reverse, or what is the counterfactual, right? The counterfactual would have been, if you still even had access to a capital market, international capital market, Eurobonds near there, you would have gone to the Eurobond, and here will be in a year, maybe 3 billion. What will be the interest rate you pay? Maybe 7, 8. And even now, Ghana having defaulted on our debt, if we go, you may even pay a little bit higher than when you had not, defaulted, right? And so bringing in the Eurobonds or going to borrow at the commercial market would have even come at a greater cost than this avenue or channel that you have with the gold board and bringing in forex that you're able to use to support your reserves, and then the rest you push to support the FX intermediation. So the point is that you have to stabilize first. Without the stability, all these investments we are talking about, real and all of those things, in fact you even have to spend more, because you budget and there it be 6 billion. It's now inflation 20-30%. The cost of the same items is gone up, and you have to spend more and more and more to that. So it is not a binary choice like some people make it out to be. You have to do one and then sequence the rest. And then luckily, like I've said, the next phase of the reform effort is really what PCI plus the other bit that the government is doing around agriculture and diversification all comes in. But the end game is that we need to build or create more jobs within the economy.
Doc, you better say what you I mean, economists for your tears here.
I hope so, but for now, I never
why are there? But what to me at the Abadan will be at tears here today, understanding of the ordinary Ghanaian. That's a primary Pemunosono, before baby, or before Niger, or Becheche, get us here.
Matthias,
all right, doctor. Until a champion technical advisor, Ministry of Finance in ATM common issues has to do with the IMF, the economy, and I feel so a quite fast bit me aboa ama nyema etumi akoyi amaye